with the talk of exclusives and that I'm not against exclusives at all. I'm not somebody who fighting for the death of exclusives, but I've pretty much feel that exclusives don't move consoles like they used to. And so this was from yesterday, June 2nd, 2026. And PlayStation first party game sales have dropped for straight years. And PlayStation first party games have fallen every year since 2020. And this is despite the fact that Sony says, we got nearly 100 million consoles out there, and people overhype their one or two games they release a year, and Sony pays for party games, and yet people don't aren't buying their first party output. People aren't buying it, and this is something that I've talked about numerous times. Exclusives are great, but they're not the system sellers they used to be. They're just not. And you could come up with any blame that you want. You could come up with any blame that you want. The simple fact is that yeah, not only are Sony not releasing games, they're not selling at the peak they used to. So this year, when Wolverine sells, it'll sell the good 5 million or something, and they'll say that's the fastest selling first party game ever. Sony's, their first party output is not going to look like it did just a mere five. Listen, it's going to be 6 straight years after this year, um, of first party game sales dropping. You know, and look, Ghost Yotai, which released last year, produced a brief but measurable jump. Yeah, a brief jump. What if that tells you a brief jump means that it's not significant? All right, it's just a little better than the year before. Sony, they don't have games. They it's and look, it's all cool to be a third person party box. It's all cool to enjoy PlayStation as much shit as I talk about PlayStation. But this idea that the exclusives what people buying, it's just not true anymore. The best selling game on the PlayStation by the end of this generation will be GTA 6. Hell, Call of Duty's going to outsell Wolverine this year on PlayStation. You know what I'm saying? If you look at the top selling games every year on PlayStation and Xbox, it's the usual suspects. Your Call of Duty's, Maddens, and Minecrafts and all that. And somehow GTA 5, I wouldn't be surprised if GTA 5 was still on them damn best selling list somehow. Um, yeah, man, but that's my point here. You know, PlayStation first party games don't sell. Y'all aren't buying them. Y'all aren't playing them. Sony spending 200, 200, maybe up to $300 million on these games. People that don't even like them like they did 10, 12 years ago. You know, and this is something that I don't care about, but I was watching Griggity's video, and he pointed out how Sony fans are tired of every new first party game is a female protagonist. You know what I'm saying? Because Sony, contrary to what someone like Colin Moriarty says, Sony doesn't know when to pivot. They've been running the same fucking game to the ground, and people are sick of it. They're going ever since 2013 with The Last of Us. Now, ever since 2013 with The Last of Us, right? What have we seen? Sony have been trying to make the same fucking game for 13 years. Third person, photorealistic, story driven game. And at some, and now it's in this generation, it's reached a point where it's all been done before. You know what I'm saying? And their fresh idea with these IPs is to make Uncharted play as the women in the game, and make Ghost of Yotai play as a, that's not innovative. That's just a gender swap. You know, and the latest release of the latest release of not the latest release, but Ghost no, God of War, LaFay, which is not coming out this year. Uh, I don't even think I don't think that game's not coming out in 2027 either. All right, that game's probably coming out in 2028 the earliest. All right, so Sony don't have so they don't have so they release one or two games a year. It's the same third person game or the same multiplayer live service game that flops, and people wonder why exclusives don't sell on PlayStation, and exclusives haven't sold on consoles for I'd say since the towards the end of the seventh generation is, but especially these last two generations, because if exclusive sales, the Xbox One would have been on fire from 2013 to 2016. The beginning of the Series X generation would have been on fire when Forza Horizon 5 and Starfield and Halo Infinite and all that stuff was released, along with the third, with those smaller games, your Hi-Fi Rushes and Redfall and stuff. But people don't buy those games. And here's the crazy part about exclusives: the quality of these games don't even matter anymore. And with Sony making the same bland game, this trend is not going to change. GTA 6 is going to outsell every game on PlayStation it has released, maybe even combined by the end of its lifetime. Sony's going to keep giving you. And by the way, Sony told you at the beginning of the generation that this is what they're going to do. Let's not forget. Let's not forget that. The beginning of the generation, what they say? Oh, we're going to be putting out less games. And they're not here to kicker. It's not higher quality. It's just a copy and paste sequel. So let me know what you guys think on this, and I'm out.